Welcome everybody to the Dao De Jing series. We are up to 50 and 51. The format is very simple. Everybody is welcome to read their favorite translation of number 50. Then Jason and Amon are going to present their translation, and then we will go to comments. So if you'd like to read 50, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Say the name of the translator, just read, and no comments at this stage. Just read the verse and go from there. We'll start with Quan. Quan, go ahead.
Okay, translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 50. They come forth into life and they go to the dead. The gateways of life are 13 in all, and the gateways of death the same 13. But people in pursuit of life drive themselves to where death waits, at any of the 13 mortal points. And why is this? A way of life too rich. Men say those who secret themselves well will meet no gaoler or tiger on the land, nor suffer weapons wound in war. Present the gaoler, no place to gore them, nor the tiger place to claw them, nor the foe a place to stab them. And why is this so? Their mortal points are not exposed.
Thank you, Quan. Folks, go ahead. Would love to hear more readings. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. Next up is going to be Connie. Connie, go ahead.
Okay, Ursula Le Guin's interpretation, love of life. To look for life is to find death. The 13 organs of our living are the 13 organs of our dying. Why are the organs of our life where death enters us? Because we hold too hard to living. So I've heard if you live in the right way, when you cross country, you needn't fear to meet a mad bull or a tiger when you're in a battle. You needn't fear the weapons. The bull would find nowhere to jab its horns. The tiger, nowhere to stick its claws. The sword, nowhere for its point to go. Why? Because there's nowhere in you for death to enter.
Thank you, Connie. Paige, would you like to read your translation? And then anybody else wants to read, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Paige, next.
Thank you. Let me cut and paste my, I thought I already done it. So let me put into the chat. Okay, here it goes. From birth to death, 3 in 10 are followers of life. 3 in 10 are followers of death. There are another 3 in 10 who can live but fall into death early. Why is that falling into death early? Because they live in pursuit of long life. It is said that those skilled at living their lives encounter no rhino or tigers on their journeys, emerging unscathed from the battlefield, as if a rhino found no place to plant its horns, a tiger found no place to lay its claws, and a sword found no place to trust its sharp edge. Why is this so? Because they leave no opening for death to enter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paige. Next up is Jason and Amon.
All right, Jason, I'll let you share and I will read from my copy. Give me 1 second. Chapter 50, To Live and to Die. Emerge to life, to live, recede, to die. 3 out of 10 may live, 3 out of 10 may die. 3 out of 10 could live, but die by entering the places of death. Why so? Because they live excessive lives. I heard that some are good at nurturing their lives. They don't encounter rhinos or tigers when walking about the land. They don't bear armors nor weapons when entering the military. Rhinos find no place to thrust their horns. Tigers find no place to lay their claws. Weapons find no place to receive their blades. Why so? They are not in the lands of death.
Yeah, thank you, Amon. I think I like our translation for this one because this one probably different than most of the translation. First, the title, 生死, I translate to live or and to die, but probably could be translated as to be or not to be, right? So I think this one is if we look at the audience, I kind of feel like the audience for this chapter is the regular people, okay? So just tell people, find the way to live, okay? I think you probably, I see a lot of English translation or even Chinese translation doing the 13, 十有三, okay? Yeah, technically in ancient Chinese, 10 and 3 means 13, but it probably meaningless. So I think Peggy and we also translate as 3 out of 10. I think that makes more sense because and then it roughly, doing 1/3 of people doing this, 1/3 of people doing this, and another 1/3 of people doing this way, roughly. So I don't, and then so basically talk about the 1/3, 3 out of 10 may live, and the Chinese word is 死之徒, and I believe that's why we can sometimes we call it the follower of death. I think that means they are destined to die because some natural disease, some defect, and another 3 they have the destiny to live. Okay, they will not die. But I think the last part is interesting. They talk about some people supposed to live, but they die because they 动之死地. Okay, basically they talk about they entering the place of death. Okay, so I think the whole thing is going to talk about the place of death, how to avoid this. Okay, so here basic talk about the people good nurturing your life, and then the message in this chapter basically talk about you don't encounter rhino or tiger. Basically, rhino or tiger, you can see that's a dangerous place. So when you walk, you avoid the place. That's why you don't encounter rhino and the tiger. So you will not die. Okay. And the next sentence will be interesting. The Chinese word called 入军不备甲兵. Okay. So I find out most of the translation or interpreter, okay, all talk about not being hurt, okay, by the weapon, okay. So, but I think if we look at the Chinese word, okay, 入军不备甲兵, that means when you enter the military service, you don't carry the weapon or wear the armor. Okay, when I look at this sentence, that's no other meaning than saying 入军 means entering the military service and without wearing the armor and the weapon. Okay, so the only thing I can explain is why when you enter the military, okay, you are doing the logistic work. Okay, you're doing the supply on the back in the back for the supply role, okay, or administration role. So you don't carry the armor and the weapon. Okay, so I think that's the interesting message because Laozi, okay, could tell you when you're doing the military service, don't do it the fighting role or doing it in the front. Just you should stay in the back or doing the administration work, doing the supplying job. Okay, in this way, you will not get killed. I think that's the message he's telling. If I look at this one, so that's why later on he talked about the rhino find no place to trust their homes because you don't encounter the rhinos, you don't encounter tiger, so tiger has no place to place their clothes, and you join the military, but you stay behind, so the weapon find no place to receive their blade. So that's the simple message they're talking about. And why so? They are not in the land of death. Repeat, the 死地, okay, the land of death, because you avoid all the dangerous place. I think that's the message for this paragraph. Laozi is telling people to avoid the dangerous place. When you walk, avoid the jungle where the rhino or tiger will appear. When you're doing in the military, because during that time, a lot of war going on, and you don't, if you enter the military, I believe it's not volunteered, basics, being drafted. So you stay behind, and then you don't wear the armor or weapon, and you don't get killed because you wear armor and weapon. That means you are in the fighting role, and you have a chance to be killed. So I think that's this chapter is talking about. I base on the text is this meaning, and I believe most of translation, most of the interpreter may have a different meaning on that. But since my role is stick with the text itself, so that's the way we do the translation. So I'm done here, and Amang, if you have more to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. I agree with Jason that the message seems fairly straightforward, but the method, I think, is what is a little obfuscated. And I say a little in the sense that this is, to my mind, probably the most misinterpreted passage by Taoists in the Tao Te Ching. Because for those who aren't familiar, many centuries of Taoist pursuit have been the pursuit of immortality, finding a way to extend one's life and live, as an immortal. What Lao Tzu is saying here is that that is a mistake. And Taoists never took that on board. They just said, no, we'll keep trying. More cinnabar, swallow more mercury. We'll get this right eventually. There's many ways I could actually break this down, but I'll go to that passage about bearing no armor nor weapons when you enter the military. The message here is about avoiding the places of death, but not through negative attention or control. If you were to go into the military and if you were thinking to yourself, I want to get out of this alive, I don't want to die, not only would you not wear armor, you would probably put on as much armor as you possibly could. Not only would you not carry a weapon, you might load yourself down with weapons because you're hell-bent and damn determined, I'm coming out of this alive one way or another. That kind of emphasis on a negative outcome is going to draw the negative outcome towards you. And that's kind of the message he's driving out here. If you were to go to war like that or enter the military like that, you put a target on your back and work at a cross purpose of what your intention may be. He gets at this when he says 3 out of 10 could live, but enter the places of death because they live lives of excess. And this isn't just extravagant excess. This is excessive focus on the negative, the focus on, I gotta live longer. The sort of tongue-in-cheek story was the professional jogger in the 70s and 80s who wrote multiple books on the subject and dropped dead while jogging, was found by two smokers out for a walk. You focus so intently on what you don't want to happen that you actually invite that outcome to be. I think that is the method that Laozi is extolling here, and it's what has been honestly overlooked and misunderstood by many Taoists for many centuries. So how do you avoid this without excessively wanting to avoid it? By investing in the loss, by investing in the loss of the armor that you think would protect you, by investing in the loss of the absolute obsession with calorie counting and gym days and all the things that you must do to make this happen, letting that go and being natural, you'll avoid naturally the places of death. The rhinos won't even see you to stab you. The tigers won't find a place to have purchase because they won't treat you like a threat. You are free and easy wandering through life.
Thank you, Amon. All right, folks, would love to hear your comments. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom if you'd like to comment. First up, give me just a second here. Hold on. Yes, first up is Quan.
Okay, so first I would like to offer the interpretation by Professor Most Roberts, because in his case, he translated at 13. And the explanation he gave is not bad at all, okay, because he mentioned that Han Feizi, who was a legalist philosopher, so philosopher who was very centered on political life, but he had also some, I would say, metaphysical and psychological contributions. And the 13 points are very simple, okay? The two eyes, the two ears, the two nostrils, the mouth, the two excretory organs, and the four limbs, okay? So you add all those stuffs together, it gives 13. Meaning that all the organs of the senses and of actions that can bring us into trouble, okay? So, of course, here we have once again the timeless Taoist advice not to abuse the time dimension either by too little or too much. Even if in the case of the stanza, it would stress more on the dimension of too much, because if I read the and why is this a way of life too rich? Okay, so most of the time, the Taoists are associated with the advice to moderation and or even to poverty, I would say. But I think it's a caricature in interpreting the Taoists, in the sense that I think that the major message or the major advice of the Taoists is to be whole, okay, to have the mind layers of your time dimensions, the sense perception, the intellect, and the social sophistication, but also having the mind layers of your timeless reality. Okay, if I use the Greek terminology, would be beauty, goodness, and truth. If I use the Chinese terminology, it would be Yi Ran Tao. So here, I would say that not to abuse is not only not to have a life which is too rich, but also not having a life which is too poor. And managing to achieve your time dimension, but also having your timeless reality, what I said last time, by having your diamond or formless awareness, but also living your phenomenal life. And for the that's for the first part. The second part yes, it's much more Taoist in the what I call the ordinary meaning of the word. Okay, if you don't want trouble, well, don't go to places that you can get attention on you, and especially in situation where you wouldn't be in trouble. And obviously, if you go against the dangerous animals like tigers, or you involve yourself in dangerous activities like war, well, don't be surprised that you would get killed, and you will not always be lucky. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwon. Next up is Jason, followed by Madeline. Jason.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kwang. Okay, so that Kwang, and then let's have a brief. Okay, I believe you agree with your translation, Professor. What's his last name?
Most Roberts.
Most Robert. Okay, so
Okay, the
okay,
same
that's
translated the three kingdoms.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay, so let's have a brief debate, not to convince each other, but to make our position clear. Okay, that's make it easy. So, in your point of view, there's a certain organ or certain aperture, whatever. Okay, so basically the message is uh, go to mystical. The 死地, the land of death, means some mystical way or mystical practice will avoid death. Is that what they mean?
No, no. The way I understand this is that first, I think that the basic message of the old master is you have to live your life in time, but don't forget the diamond, which is your formless awareness. Okay, and here the 13 points are simply the senses organ and the organ of actions. Okay, you have your four limbs, you have the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the nostril. So those are the organs of our physical body that would put us into contact with the fun that we can have in time. Okay, for example, eating, listening to music, uh, admiring painting, admiring beautiful bodies, having sex, being going to fight other people to conquer kingdoms and stuff like that. Okay, so the stuff that we can do in the time dimension, it's thanks to the fact that we have a body, okay, with sense perception and with our organs of actions, okay, the limb. So here, the advice is that those gifts from nature, the time dimension, of course, it's the source of fun for us, but it's also the source of death if you abuse the pleasure of sex, of food, of music, of painting, of being too of a fighting mood, and so on. So, and it goes with the basic Taoist advice to be moderate, okay, to be wise, precisely, okay, because once again, I don't think that the Taoists invite us to a life of poverty. I think that the Taoists invite us to a life of wholeness, okay, and that wholeness is that you have your layers in the time dimension. Once again, the sense perception, the intellect, and the social sophistication. But don't forget your diamond, okay? Don't forget Yi Ren Tao. Don't forget the formless awareness that would precisely make you aware that you can have fun, but also to stay in the golden mean, in that life adventure of having fun, and by respecting yourself and by respecting others. So I don't think that you need to go into mystical interpretations to understand that stanza. That stanza is a very down to earth, wise advices from the old masters. And the way that I understand Laozi is that he say, have fun with your body, but don't abuse it. And remember your formless awareness. Remember that you have a diamond, that is your true identity, that is your true face given by the whole. But have fun with your body. And I would push as far as, since the true teaching of the old master is awareness, okay? You want to go to war, you want to conquer other peoples, okay, have fun, but be aware that maybe you will not be victorious, but you will be defeated and you will be dead. So if you're capable to be responsible and to say, okay, I'm defeated, I will be killed, that's okay. I had fun in my life. I watched a movie about ancient China, and there was an aristocrat who was defeated in a battle, and he knew that he wouldn't be killed. Okay, and he said to his comrades in arms, but that's okay. I had a fun life. I got a lot of sex, of power, of fun. Just too bad. I got defeated. I wouldn't be killed. I just life, but I had a fun life. I would say that Laozi would be very happy with that kind of student too.
Well, I got your point. Your interpretation is that the 13 basically talk about our sensor and our and you take the interpretation of the sensor point of view on this. Yeah, I'm not saying I agree, but that's an interesting interpretation or another way to interpret. Okay.
Yeah, that's the teaching of ultimate awareness. Okay, you have been given an extraordinary gift, life. If you want to abuse it and you get killed, but you're still happy, well, you got the lesson.
Yeah. Hold on. I just want to know that's the way, another way to interpret. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not going to that far. I just look at the text and talk about the text. So since the text doesn't talk about sense, so I have no sense on this.
Come on,
but I'm
Jason,
not saying you are wrong, but
come
that's
on,
the
Jason. It's one of the fun that we can have in life. Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so I think we should stop here.
Okay.
Yeah. The purpose is not convince each other. The purpose is to know. Okay, they have the different position on the text. Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is Madeline. Madeline, go ahead.
Thanks, Shrikant, and thanks, Jason and Aman, for the translation. It is lovely, as always. Let's see. So I also read Moss Roberts's translation and saw his notes, and I thought, well, I don't know. It seemed more like a cultural reference. So I did a little bit of looking online, not very thorough at all, and nothing really seemed to apply. So I like this one a lot better. But I am bothered by the leftover one. In other words, you've got a total of 9 people. So you've got 9 out of 10 people doing this, unless this is some cosmic commentary on the one. I don't know if this is what they might have meant, because otherwise they would have just said 3 out of 9 instead of 3 out of 10. So then I'm also thinking it's quite possible that it referred to something that just simply has not survived in terms of texts or culture. Either as a 13 or as a 3 out of 10, just may not have survived for us to be able to interpret from.
Go ahead, Aman. Aman, you're on mute.
Sorry, bad habits. I wanted to applaud Madeline because I think she tapped onto something very important. The idea that when you read through the numbers, it does leave a remainder of 1, which begs the question, what of this other person that doesn't fit these categories? What is this person? Who are they? What are they? And for that, I think prior and post context is very important. In the next chapter, it will talk about mysterious duh or profound duh or dark hidden duh, something that is revolutionary. And so the apt student would get here in the Tao Te Ching and say, but master, you missed one. What about this other one? Keep reading, because the next chapter is going to wet your whistle for it, as it were. And eventually we'll get back to talking about the sage, the person who defies these categories all the way across the board.
Thank you, Amon. Next up is Mark, followed by Nick. Mark.
Thank you, Shrikant. Hi, everybody. Since this stanza is talking about how not to try too hard to perpetuate life, I'm still wondering how it affects our reading and interpretation of the Tao Te Ching itself. Presumably, in the writing of the work, Laozi had to follow Wu Wei. How does this affect us in the translation and in the interpretation to follow Wu Wei in translating and to follow Wu Wei in interpreting?
Thank you, Mark. Does either Jason or Amon want to comment on this?
Let me comment on this one. I'm not denying Laozi has something teaching about not trying too hard. And then, of course, he's talking about Wu Wei. But if we focus on this chapter, and I don't see he's talking about not trying too hard. Everything I see is avoid something. In the Chinese term, use the 无死地. Okay, I understand as avoid something. Okay, I'm not saying Laozi didn't do that. Okay, didn't say not trying too hard. Didn't say Laozi didn't teach Wu Wei. But in this chapter, basics, he is talking about avoiding something. That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shrikant.
Just a quick comment where I like Ursula Le Guin's one line here in response to what you were saying. Why are the organs of our life where death enters us? Because we hold too hard to living. So the best I understand this is that, it's like if you're riding a bike in a very, very, very kind of choppy terrain. And if you try too hard to control it, then you're going to fail. It's kind of, you really need to be kind of far more responsive to what the terrain is and what the bike is and what you are. And if you try to just kind of say, no, this way, that's what I get from that. Go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to say to Mark, this is a paradox. To study hard without hard study, or hard study without studying hard, it is one of those very difficult things. This is a book written by a professor. The title is Trying Not to Try. And Professor Slingerland is one of the preeminent scholars on this subject. And this entire book is about reconciling this exact sort of paradox that you face when you are trying to practice Wu Wei in the pursuit of anything. So I'm not going to say that there's an easy solution. It's just simply something that you wrestle with until you, kind of like the riding of a bicycle.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Nick.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, thank you, Shrikant, thanks for all those responses, that when Jason said, let's not try to argue over the interpretation of the 3 out of 10 or verses 13, I think he was demonstrating the kind of thing that you're talking about. Let's listen to the interpretations, but not bang our head against the wall trying to figure out which is the correct one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Next up is Nick, Nalini, and Kwan. Nick.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just want to add to this discussion. Interesting. My sentiment is slightly on the side of Mark, which is Also, in response to what I thought I heard Amen said about later Taoist monks pursuing perpetual life, and also Jason's rendition of the verse in the spirit of seeking, avoiding death on the battlefield. I have a sense that the later Taoist monks or Taoism as a religion somewhat perverted the original teaching of Laozi, which basically promoted the teaching of the law of nature. So anything against nature will be frowned upon, regarded as trying too hard. So in that sense, I just want to add a bit of voice to the side of the sentiment expressed by Mark on this issue.
Thank you, Nick. Great point. Next up is going to be Nalini, followed by Kwan. Nalini, go ahead. Need to unmute. Okay, let's go with Kwan first. Kwan, go ahead.
I will be very brief. I think that I go back to what Aman said, okay? The idea of trying not to try. That kind of stuff we cannot resolve but within the time dimension. We can only resolve it within the timeless reality precisely when we embody formless awareness. And I stop here to follow my own advice, not to go too much into words.
Thank you. Thank you, Kwan. Nalini, are you there? Last chance. Otherwise, let's dive into number 51. I'm going to read first. Folks, anybody who wants to read, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. I'm going to start with, I like Ursula Le Guin here. She calls it nature nurture. The way bears them. Power nurtures them. Their own being shapes them. Their own energy completes them. And not one of the 10,000 things fails to hold the way sacred or to obey its power. Their reverence for the way and obedience to its power are unforced and always natural. For the way gives them life. Its power nourishes them, mothers and feeds them, completes and matures them, looks after them, protects them. To have without possessing, do without claiming, lead without controlling. This is mysterious power. Next up is Kwan.
Okay, translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 51. 10,000 Tao begets and breeds, which its power tends and feeds. As objects all take varied shape, as things to use reach final form. For this the natural myriad honor the way, esteem its power. Such honor and such high esteem, no mandate from above decreed. It is their norm of self-becoming. Tao indeed begets and breeds. All its power tends and feeds and fosters and then raises up and brings to full maturity and still preserves and still protects. For Tao begets but does not keep, words its way but does not bind, authority that does not rule. Such is the meaning of hidden power.
Thank you, Kwan. Anybody else would like to read? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Peiji, would you like to read?
Thank you. Tao creates beings. De rears them. Their species shapes them. The momentum completes them. Hence, all beings without exception revere Dao and prize De. Revel Dao and prize. Their reverence and appreciation arise naturally, not by command. It is Tao that creates them. It is De that rears them, guides them, fosters them, cultivates them, vaccinates them, cares for them, and protects them, creating lives without claiming ownership, serving without expectation or expecting, leading without controlling. Such is the mystic De. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peichi. Anybody else wants to read? Last chance. 10 seconds. Okay, let's go to Jason and Amon.
Chapter 51, To Honor and to Value. Tao produces them. De raises them. Things are formed and conditions are completed. Therefore, all things honor Tao and value De. The honor of Tao and the value of De never command, but let all things be their usual selves. Therefore, Tao produces them. De raises them, grows them, nurtures them, stabilizes them, matures them, supports them, and shields them. It produces without possessing, acts without leading, and grows them without controlling them. This is called mysterious, profound De.
Thank you, Amount. And then I put a few question mark here. That means or sometimes means Amount and I probably have a different choice, and I'm not very sure, which way to go. And of course, I open to any suggestion or comment. That's why I put a comment mark, the question mark here. I think I like the first line translation. Okay, 道生之，德处之，物行之，事成之。I think this four word 道德物 means things. 事 okay, if you are in the art of war, 事 is very important. It means the situation, the condition, the configuration, the outside environment. So I think that the first sentence is the declaration of the if you read this, compare this one with previous one, this one is a very different tone, right? Previous one, in my reading, is talking to the common people, how to avoid death, how to avoid dangers, okay? Even in a different Professor Roberts' interpretation, they have the 13 organs, and it talks about sensual, how to deal with sensual. Also, in the same message, teach you how to live your life, okay? 51 looks like a totally different tone or different subject, right? This one is more, I would call metaphysics, okay, argument, right? So basically talk about the Tao, okay? Tao, Chinese word here, if you look at it, use 知 4 times, okay? This 知 is a very strange word because you can be anything, okay? So basically, I have to anybody interpret, even translate to English or read it in Chinese, you need to find something to replace this word, 知. That's why sometimes you see very different in translation. So the Tao, basically my understanding is Tao is the producer, and the De is the thing with power to do something. So it's raise them, and the things, okay, everything is created, and the environment will be ready. Okay, I think that's the beginning of this sentence. So in this way, they will say the Tao and the De is the most, Tao is the, we honor Dao and the value De, because Dao is in the highest point, and the De, which is powerful, then we can say valuable. Okay. So later on, I think this one, this last sentence, okay, is difficult to translate or difficult to interpret, even in Chinese. 夫莫之命常自然. Okay, two difficult words. 常, okay, I think the most interpreter will consider as constant, permanent, eternity. Okay, but in this time, my second time working on this one, I kind of think about the word 常 should be considered as typical, common, usual. And in this way, 自然 doesn't mean the nature. It means the thing by itself. So self-cause, the meaning of self-cause. So that means, the value of Tao, the honor of Tao and the value of De is self-cause, okay, by itself in this way, okay. It's a common way, okay. So that's my interpretation on this sentence. And the rest will be simple. Basically talking about the Tao will produce them and that kind of repeat one more time and make it more detailed. And then last part, and I think it's also important, basically talking about something opposite, right? Kind of, if you produce something, you kind of feel like I own it. I produce a artifice and I own it. But here you talk about something different, right? If you produce something, you don't own it. If you doing something, you don't lead in it. Okay, you grow something, you don't control it, and then you call this one 玄德. Okay, I think before I kind of like the translation as profound for 玄, but this time I kind of feel like probably 玄 should means mystic, okay, or mystical, okay, because it's a little bit deep, and then the author doesn't want to explain in detail. So that's why I put a question mark here, because I may decide later. And I heard, is that from Professor Roberts, a translation called Hidden Power? And I think that's probably what I meant, hidden power. Okay. But if I have to stick with the Chinese character, 玄德, if I translate it to hidden power, I think it's a little bit too far away from the original text. So I still looking for some word would be close to the word 玄德, but imply the meaning of hidden power. That's what my understanding on this text. Yeah. So Aman, please.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for holding over profound, because I do like it for shred, but it is, like Jason says, very difficult to translate. But as you also know, it's not desirable to leave every Chinese word left as Chinese, especially one as important as this is, as infrequent as it appears in the Tao Te Ching. It's not a common reoccur like Dao or De, and therefore it wouldn't be something a reader could gain out of context alone. I will say about Professor Roberts, I appreciate his valiant attempt to get the same alliteration sort of feel from an English translation as with the original Chinese, because in the original Chinese, just as you can see, every sentence or clause there ends with that zhi. That means that there's a rhyming pattern here, Dao zhi, de ju zhi. It has a alliteration that makes it easier to hear in the Chinese and sort of feel the pattern, feel the rhythm of it. And I liked that Professor Roberts tried to capture that, but in capturing that, you have to make sacrifice of what the literal Chinese says. And I think in making the choice to translate the as power here, if you make that universally the case, I don't know that it fits in every circumstance where de comes up in a translation. If you allow yourself to sometimes translate it as power, other times as virtue, other times as something else, you miss the point that a particular is being driven home. And that is one of the reasons why I like the choice to retain de as Chinese and make the reader gain it out of context, even if they aren't understanding it. As far as the meaning of the passage, kind of what we were talking about before, this is a lead-in that there's something darker, something more mysterious, something more profound and significant that is not obvious to everyone, that is going on in the world through the interaction of Dao and De, and that truly that 1 in 10 who was the remainder in our previous passage, they're going to tap into this. They're going to understand it. They're going to learn to use this and be this way. Again, not that that makes it easy, not that that makes it simple, and not that there's necessarily a clear sort of cognitive way to go about figuring it out, any more than there's not a cognitive way to figure out how to make that bicycle ride smooth. It's something that is done, and it is something that once you've gained a grasp of, you simply have a feel for.
Thank you, Amon. Next up, folks, now it's time for comments on number 51. Start with Kwon.
Okay, so I would like to maybe to uphold the translation of the as power with no S and powers with an S. Here, I think that it's one of the main themes of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, after all, it's 2 words of the title. And Tao is precisely, I would call Tao the whole reality, manifest and unmanifest. Okay, once again, being and becoming. Okay, and I think that I said in the past that if you separated the 2 components of Tao, on the left side you have the radical for movement, time, and on the right side you have the word shao, meaning head, or fountainhead, meaning the source, the timelessness dimension. So time and timelessness, that's the whole reality at the cosmological level, if you want. Okay, the cosmos, but in the sense, in the higher sense, not the observable universe. The totality of the harmony of being and becoming. And Te would be the powers of the natural laws that would make manifest the Tao into phenomenal reality. And but Te with a S, powers with an S, I don't think that it's contradictory to virtues, because if you take the Latin word virtue, it comes from vir and tus. Okay, it means the strength or the power of a man, okay, of a true man, of course. So here, if you understand really the meaning of virtus or virtue in English, it means the powers of a man, of a true man. So here we are speaking of the powers not of the cosmos, but the power of the minds. Okay, those power of the mind can be intellectual, can be psychological, but can be the very high powers of spirituality, like love, like compassion, like that kind of stuff. Okay, because compassion is a mind powers in the order of high spirituality or high psychology. So in that sense, I think that powers is not necessarily around translation. The other thing too is here we have Tao and Te as a kind of couple, okay, father and mother, contrary to stanza 42, when you have from the one, you have the two and the multiple. So in stanza 42, the manifestation of Tao is more numerological. And here the manifestation of Tao is explained through the image of a father and a mother. And the last thing that I want to say about this stanza is that's precisely the hidden power, Xuan Te. Also, Xuan in Chinese means also black or profound or obscure or not obvious. Okay, you can find all kind of equivalent. It is well known that in life, when you help someone, the best help is that you help him, but without him being aware that you are helping him. Okay, because that is the highest help. The inferior kind of help is that you will help him, but you will make him feel that you help him. Okay, but if you can help him without him being aware that you help him, that is the cosmic help, and that is precisely the core characteristic of the Tao and of Te, meaning all that cosmos that is in moving in reality and helping everyone, but without waiting for rewards, even not a thank you. Okay, so the image that is used often is the sun. Okay, the sun that would shine for everyone. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwon. Next up is Madeline.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that part where Jason had let all things be their typical or usual selves. And I was trying to think of another word to contribute. Ordinary doesn't seem to quite do it. But what about every day? In the sense of this is just sort of how they are in and of themselves. Just be their everyday selves.
I agree with you every day, but I just try to avoid the mismeaning, okay, because in the Chinese word, there's no word as day, okay. So every day in the meaning it makes sense, but I just try to avoid the word day because they will kind of feel like a day. Okay, so that's the thing, and then I hope you see how much restrict, okay, I put impose on myself to translate.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
there's
why I
also
said the second time translation sometimes become more difficult because I set more rules to translate. For example, the same word must or you have to translate to the same English word.
There's also mundane, although that makes it seem a bit too removed from the cosmic in a way. Also, I'm increasingly liking your decision to keep the word de, because now every time I encounter it, I get a sense of the sort of different constellation of meanings that it can have.
I like that last observation that, by keeping it, because what happens is that really many of these words are not translatable properly. You're losing so much when you're doing the translation, but the decision to keep certain words as they are, that means as people are reading verse after verse, the meaning around that word is coalescing in their mind and so they're learning the word as they're reading the verse after verse. So excellent observation, Madeline. Amon.
What's brilliant about that, to emphasize your point, Shrikant, is that the Dao De Jing, the whole text, does that with Tao. It refuses a definition, but it gives you the sense of it by lots of examination, lots of surrounding context. I wanted to comment, and I'll kind of work backwards, what Madeline said about every day. And what Jason, yes, there isn't actually a word day in Chang, and every day as one word as opposed to every day is an adjective, not kind of a noun. And so every time somebody's making a suggestion for Chang, I'm going through the opening verse of the Tao Te Ching, which is probably the most famous Dao Ke Dao Fei Cheng Dao Ming Keng Ming Fei Cheng Ming. I'm trying to put that in my mind and say, okay, the Tao can be Tao, but not the everyday Tao. That kind of works, not the mundane Tao, not the usual Tao, not the common Tao. So there's many ways to take that idea and run with it. That for me is probably one of the most important words to find a good choice for. And I do think Jason's decision to use usual is not a bad choice because it neither elevates nor depresses. It keeps it sort of status quo, which is what the Tao is. It's the background hum of the status quo. That takes me back to what Quan said about the character Tao, which I put into the chat, the two portions of the word made of a head and a walking foot. And so you have cognition and action together, but you have something else in the Tao, which is that the Tao, like I said, is the background. It's the blank slate on which all of the universe gets to operate. And so it is almost necessarily xuan or hidden or dark or deep. De, on the other hand, Quan's correct in that power or virtue, both are good ways of understanding it. But there is another portion of it at work. You know the de of something when you approach it. The example I like to give is 3 pieces of fruit sit in front of you. One is underripe, one is overripe, one is perfect. You don't have to smell it. You don't have to squeeze it. You barely have to look at it. But a very cursory examination, just oh, that one, you will draw to the one that has the virtue of being edible, as opposed to the 2 that have that render them either not yet edible, or so is something that emanates. It is in the pair of Dao and De. It is the yang, the obvious, the out there, the examinable, whereas Tao is the yin, the dark, the hidden, or the mother and father, if you like. When Lao Tzu decides that Xuande has to be mentioned here. So apparently, in addition to this bright, brilliant De that we can see, there is another De that works or operates, and it's the less obvious, the less noticed, but no less significant or deeply profound. That rotten fruit may not be good for eating, but it's great for making another fruit tree. And so something very significant may be lost by only examining the obvious de in neglect of the deeper de. And so even in the title of Dao De Jing, you are being given away the game that the universe is a dance between yin and yang, Dao and De, obvious and neglected. And Lao Tzu extols upon people, watch what is neglected. There's really important things happening there.
Thank you, Amon. Madeline, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have another a question about the composition of the word Tao, because I noticed that it doesn't use heart, mind, and walking. It uses head, and I had read somewhere that the head character can also mean first or prime. So it might mean something like the first motion. So in other words, the head walking could also mean like the primal movement of things, the first movement. I'm just kind of guessing.
I'm dropping some etymology in the chat, but yeah, Madeline, you're correct. Chief, first amongst Yes.
Quan, go ahead.
Well, I think that Madeline interpretation is very close to mine, okay? Because for me, Shao head is not not the intellectual operation. It can mean that, of course, okay? And I think that what Aman say, action and thinking is very good. But my separation of the word Tao is for time and timelessness, okay? And when Madeline was speaking of the primal movement or what is at the source, okay? Because for me, head, which can be interpreted as the intellectual operation, of course, but for me, head here is fountainhead, okay? The source, the timelessness, reality versus the time dimension. Absolutely, I think that Madeline is spot on, at least according to my understanding. The other thing I wanted to say, the example that Aman gave with the true fruits, I think it's excellent, and it doesn't exclude the notion of power. Okay, because power is not necessarily in doing things. Okay, power is in the being leader. Okay, that's the power of that fruit. Okay, it's phenomenal manifestation. Okay, because in the couple Tao and Te, okay, but because for me Tao Te Ching is a trialectics. Okay, Tao is heaven, Te is man, and Ching is earth. So Tao is precisely that what is hidden. Okay, that the whole cosmos, but in the sense of the highest meaning of cosmos, the primordial principles, okay, the basic rule of the universe, what's make the whole machine run. Te is the cosmological powers, but also the powers of the mind, because a little bit like the notion, the Christian notions that man is at the image of God. Okay, if there is somewhere that man can be very close to the image of God, is precisely in his mind, in the sense that that whole cosmos, that whole, the God's plan for the universe, okay, that powers that would make the universe run because of the universal laws, while man, because of his power, the powers of his developed mind, is capable to go there. And that is precisely that for me, the powers, either at the cosmological level or at the epistemological level, because the epistemological journey is precisely the journey to the powers of the mind that are also the powers of the cosmos. And Jing is precisely the more phenomenal manifestation. So you have timeless reality, which is Tao. You have Jing, which is time dimension, but Te is precisely that overture that connects the nexus that connects both timelessness and time. Okay, the Greek call it kairos. Okay, Kairos. So, and the example of the fruit precisely is that it is the power of the fruit to appear in time, that it is just perfect because it is its intrinsic. I would not say being, because being is in timelessness, because it's intrinsic manifesting virtues to be just perfect and not overripe or underripe. I stop here.
Wonderful, great observations, Quant. I particularly like that three-part division. Beautiful. All right.
I had, oh,
ahead.
sorry. I had just one thing to add about the shuao, the choice for the word head in Dao. It's not the only choice that could have been made. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, no pun intended, this version of head, as opposed to Tao, which would be cranium sort of thinking. This is a picture of a person kind of looking around, lost. It's the head of an idiot, as I have been made to be aware. And so it's interesting that this is the choice of the addition to the word Tao as opposed to other options. So try not to get too elevated with it. Remember, it is just the common or typical way.
Thank you, Amon. Peichi, would you like to comment on this verse, and especially if you would like, I would love to hear your thoughts about De. How do you think of De? You've talked extensively about Dao, and everybody has been talking about De. So anything that you have to say about the De? Go ahead.
Thank you. Would you mind me sharing my screen?
Sure, give me
So
just a
I can
second.
talk with the text.
Yes, give me just a second. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, let me comment on 50. I think the main message is about observing the pattern of people's attitude to life or death. Either, one appreciate life, one appreciate death, and one is fearful about death. And then the last one is basically pay no mind to either life and death, which is the central message is about the Wu Wei, about embracing, accepting things as they are. Now, this the last paragraph using the parable to sort of describe such a miracle, and we do observe from time to time when we see one is have a full faith, like Muhammad Gandhi. People will be very, very concerned about his welfare, and yet he is such a faithful person, and that faith is really coming from his awareness, and carry him through, and without actually any physical harm until the very last, which is by the religious mob who equally have a blind faith in the church or in the mosque and in the doctrine, which can be equally powerful. So that's what I'm getting. Now, in relation to some translation, I can sense that there is the argument. For example, the word, 师有三. Indeed, this can be translated as 13. But then, if it is 13, it does not really make sense in the whole context of the sentence. Firstly, it can't be 13%, because in the ancients, they don't have that concept of a percentage. And if you translate the 3 among 10, that's the ratio. So that make more sense about the ratio. Then, counter argument would be, 3%, 3%, the 30%, and then there is a 1% left. Now that can be easily understood, because the ancients, they don't want to be too certain about, want to have a full projection or observation. Remember, stop short before the to the brain is always a good thing. You don't want to be full. You don't want to be so too certain about the fixed pattern. That's how the will fit to the reality. It's not. There is always something left uncertain. And but to me, 30% does not really reflect the reality, but this something, I guess it do leave people to wonder what exactly it means. But I guess the central message I'm getting is about the pattern of the attitude to life. And the what we need to follow is the last pattern, that pay no attention, pay no mind to the death or life. And just be present, just embrace what it comes. Be with your awareness. So that's my reading about verse 50. It is a very difficult one and have lots of different translation. Now, in relation to Jason's very unique interpretation about, entering military without have the armor and weapon. It is quite an unusual interpretation, I have to say, because it does not really reflect the semantics of the sentence in between, the prior or after, there must be some sort of a parallel. And so if you translate that as without wearing armor and weapon, it does not really align with the other sentence. And also translating this jia bing as an armor and a weapon is certainly one of the interpretation, but it can also be interpreted, in my view, that it's simply talking about type of weapon. The weapon is made, the sword, it's basically sword or the arrow, which is with the hard, this is the back of the total, which is the hard material, which is used in ancient time as the sword, as the arrow. So maybe simply specify the weapons, this sentence is talking about that, you don't encounter the rhino or the tiger. And here, when you into the military, and you will not be, encounter the weapon. And then there is, there is no. Then it talks about the reason why it will not harm is not because no encounter, and no encounter is simply because the weapon become powerless to the person who has no place for death. So this is obviously the metaphor, is a parable. It cannot be read as literally, but this sort of miracle does happen, right? It's been described in particularly in many religious teaching. Let me move on to the next one. This is the one. This is the verse actually one of the verse made me realize the Tao is really, the Tao that Laozi was referring is really the awareness. And De is a relative term to the Tao. It is relative to individual. It's the state of awareness. It reflects the combination of the analytical mind and with the awareness, because we individually live our life and we utilize our intellect to play a role, individual role. And we are not always 100% with awareness, because if you 100% with awareness, you are the sage, you are the Tao itself, and you will have that mystic De. That's what the mystic De is about. The last line, mystic De, is you can think about as equivalent to puti in the Buddhist teaching. It's basically reflect that the one's personal soul with awareness are embraced into one. There is no separation. Now, this mystic De is something that reflected in all of us, and which we usually describe as a motherly love. You know, a mother, the intrinsically have that sort of De, you know, in relation to her babies. So this is really something act without any analytical mind. It's just instinct, the intuition. It's something that we follow the model of Tao. So by connecting Tao and the De to the awareness, reread this sentence, you will understand, you will see the logic. Why it is that this verse is very much focused on De. What De do to you, individual? Isn't that our state of awareness shape each of us as an individual? Think about it. Now, there is a particular word I use, the vacinate. This is very interesting. The original text is poison. So it is the poison, you know, the things, the beings. This is really means vaccinates, and this is naturally happens, particularly the way when the baby starts around 6 months old. You know, they start to develop their own immune system and falling sick, you know, frequently. And that's a way about vaccinates, you know, immunizing and get again immune system becomes stronger. So I see this verse is really reminds him about the link, what the Laozi is really mean, the Tao, what Tao is. Now I have noticed that we were analyzing the character, the formation of the character. Now we need to understand this character existed before the concept of Tao is being utilized by the author. And originally, this character simply means the path, the road that we walk on it. And the road was becoming the place that the land that became a path because we walk on it. By walking it, become the Tao, become the path. So the originally, this simply, the original meaning simply the path or way. And in particular, I mentioned last time, in verse 1, the translation of this character should be way, not Tao, because the Tao have a specific meaning that is being defined in verse 25. It is being referred to that which is constant, that is absolute, that is always existed and nameless. And so that Laozi give that term a special meaning to represent to this is the source. Now, by describing this, including the whole book, it also links to the awareness, which this book tells us that awareness is really in all of us, is the real, is the essence, actually the essence of each of us. And it is also absolute, always existed. Remember, because it's the original representing that which is constant, that is nameless. Now, initially in verse 42, when I read that the Tao creates one, and you know, and also there are many in verse 40 talking about the Tao creates beings, create everything. I only thinking about that. I thought about that only about, on a Big Bang at the very beginning when the universe is formed. By reading this, I realized each life starts by embracing Tao as its host. Without Tao, there will be no life. Now, if you link that Tao to awareness, you understand. Take example of human. Awareness is a pure consciousness. Without consciousness, you'll be dead. There will be no life. So a life starts by embracing Tao as its host. And when it loses the Tao or the awareness, life ceases. Simple as that. I will stop here.
Thank you. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, first, we will stop here. We're not going to chapter 52. That's
What do you think? Do you want to do that?
well, that's fine. That's fine. If I think that's usually I have to leave at 7. I don't have a chance to discuss with.
Sorry, I spent too much.
That'll be a great chance because
this is a great opportunity for Jason to Jason and Paige to talk. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear Paige's profound view about the Tao and the De, and which it's hard to say. I believe if we have 10 people here talking about Tao, probably we have 20 different opinions. So it's very common to disagree than agree to each other. I think we already at the first day we already forbid discussing what is Tao, but it turned out nobody followed this rule because we don't. One of the reasons we want to start with De instead of Tao is I try to avoid this discussion because the first chapter you have no way to avoid, but turn out that we cannot avoid this one. So. Just joking, but I'm glad to hear, and I just roughly categorize my understanding for everybody's opinion. So for Kwang, probably more on epistemology, awareness, consciousness, this kind of concept of Tao. And the Paige probably more on the, how do they say, I just my bias a little bit close on the religious side, faith, and then absolute this side. And I hope I do it correct. I know it's not precise because you have your own idea. I should not describe for you, but that's my understanding. Okay, forgive me if you think I misunderstood. I just like to share what I think. What is Tao? To me, Tao is the attitude. Okay, so I see, and of course, Amang and I working together for a long time, and we probably influence each other. Why? Since we already know the text before we met, and then after we met, we probably influence each other, and we got a little bit closer. And I kind of feel it's an attitude, and then. I kind of like bring down from Tao from the very high to a very common, like Mandarin talk about everyday things. Okay, so that's my view of the Tao to this one. I think that's the if you try to avoid the Dao De Jing, find another person to close interpreting Tao. I think it might take, I just have to say, probably Paige will be close to Buddhism interpretation. And that I hope I don't insult anybody, but basically that's what my Paige probably close to Buddhism interpretation. And Kwang probably close to Confucius, I Ching's interpretation. Okay, and I will classify him as a neo-Taoism, which is one piece interpretation. And I disagree with one piece, just be honest. You know, I read his interpretation, and then every time I do translation, I read one piece interpretation, I say, nah, that's not right. Same as I do the Confucius interpretation, I will check with Zhu Xi. I will say, that's okay. So, and I think my interpretation, I don't want to claim it's my original invention, but I would like to say I'm very close to Zhuangzi's interpretation. Okay, because Zhuangzi is kind of like taking a more secular and take an easy attitude. Okay, easy life, this kind of loose, not absolute attitude. That's I think I have to say about what is Tao, and that's my observation. I know it's not precise. That's my understanding. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Sorry, this is great because this is the first time, Paige and Jason and Amon have had a chance to talk. I would like to go to Amon next, and then Quan. Amon, any comments on the Dao and the?
Oh God, yes. I wanted to echo Jason's comments. 10 people here, 20 opinions. One of my good friends is Jewish, and he often said, you get 2 Jewish men in a room, you get 3 opinions. And I said, you get 2 Taoists in a room, you'll get at least 3 opinions. But if they're any good at being Taoist, no one's going to talk about it because it's in the rules. Those who know don't speak. Those who speak don't know, which makes what I'm about to do an absolute violation. But I taught this for so many years. And so if we're going to talk about the Tao, well, we have the benefit of industrial light and magic and heavy special effects to whet our imagination to help us. I always told my classes, we're going to take a field trip in our minds in a rocket ship. We're going to get in the ship, fly out of orbit, turn around, look at the planet, take a snapshot. There it is. That's the way things are. Inarguably, that you're looking at right there. That's how they are. But that's not the Tao. It's just a warm-up. You got to get outside the solar system. Take a shot of that. Well, there's everything that is, and that's the way things are, but still not it. Get to the outer rim of all existence, turn around, take a shot of the entire complexity of the cosmos, and you've almost got the Tao. You're missing a couple of things, though. One is that you could Photoshop. You could edit, you could change, paste, remove, empty the whole scene. The Tao is still there. It's what exists behind all of that. It's the way that allows all other ways to be. And a still photo isn't the way it is either, because the way it actually is in motion. That planet is turning, that universe is expanding, those things. They need action to exist. That is closer to the Chinese concept of qi. And that qi has characteristics that extol the virtues or de of those different things. Through witnessing qi, you witness de. But even without all of that there and just a blank page, you would actually still be seeing the way things are, the way they are going to be, the way they were, the way they could be. That idea of the way is so expansive as to include so much more than our typical common rationalizing concepts of a way. So yes, this is a term that is being used polemically here. Lao Tzu has latched onto a term that exists long before him, and he has elevated it to be penultimate to what the universe is, to what we would think of in the Western trained philosophical school as the underlying metaphysic that allows us an epistemology to gain an ethic. That's the sort of stacking we've done in the West. Lao Tzu blurs the lines between that very often, but at its core, in the title, like I said, he gives away the game. Dao De Jing. Jing, I know Quan interprets as earth. Jing is classic. The I Ching, the Dao De Jing, anything that is sutured through, that is a classic. And I appreciate everybody's interpretations here, mostly because my personal understanding of the Tao, it accommodates for the room of those interpretations. It exists within the room of, yeah, those could be right as well, or those are right in a way as well. One thing I think, I believe it was Peiji, you said, being too certain. That is definitely a lesson I have taken from Taoism, is give yourself a margin of error. Never be too certain in your own interpretation, your own understanding. You could get up to 98-ish%, but you better leave a 2% margin for error, because the real way the universe operates, more things in heaven and earth than are encapsulated in your philosophy. So yeah, that's me being really bad at Taoism and talking about the Tao in a pithy way that isn't quite it, but hopefully gives you a little bit of an imaginary strain to think about how